Hello, Blazer fans. Welcome back to another episode of Blazer State Has Changed. How are you all doing on this Friday afternoon? It's a gloomy, rainy, dreary Friday afternoon for me. I don't know about all of you all, but yeah, it's just one of those days outside again. This is same in Ohio, exactly. Like I'm in Kentucky, so you know. Oh, Jason Lee, hey, changed your name, right? Used to be something else on Twitch, weren't you? Welcome back to the show, man. Nice to see you again. Yeah, that's right. It was Bite Me before. Recognized you there. Let me fix my video really quick here, and then we'll get on topic. I think I'm zoomed a little bit too far out today. I look like a postage stamp down here. So let me try to fix that real quick. If I can figure this thing out. I've got a whole new setup here. So I'm still learning. I got a new PC. I talked about it a bit last week. I could post a link, I think, now to some of my equipment that I'm using. And sorry if I keep looking down. I'm trying to do some configuration off screen here. Configure video. Let's see. Should be able to zoom. There we go. Zoom and enhance. So they say in the movies, right? Zoom and enhance, because that's a thing. Then we need to kind of straighten this guy out a little bit. Maybe we'll bring the tilt up a little. There we go. There's my mug. Anyhow. Yeah, so it's still kind of like chilly in early spring here. So I'm like still got the hoodies going. It's kind of dark and dreary outside as usual in the springtime here. But we're going to have some fun with Blazor today. Blazor is going to be like, it's RTM already. So that's awesome. And then we have the official release coming here in the next couple weeks. So we should be pretty good to go with that soon. We can start using this in production and whatnot. So looking forward to that. For the stream today, I'm looking at an article here on C# Corner. And we're talking about Blazor authentication. They're doing a Blazor server-side role-based authentication article here. I wanted to see how much of this I can get working in WebAssembly. I believe the same steps are in WebAssembly as well. We can follow those, get some authentication working in that. I also want to see if I can get it working with SQL Server Lite, because I think this is SQL Server based. I also want to point out an awesome article by Chris Santee. So he does this thing that I do every once in a while, and you see an interesting tweet or a challenge, and Rocky, if you're not familiar with Rocky, he's part of the VS Live folks. So Rocky tweeted out something about being annoyed with the web, and when you're filling out a form and you navigate away from the page, possibly by accident, come back, like the form is then blank and you have to fill it all out again, and it's a total pain. So they kind of went back and forth on Twitter, and Chris Santee ended up writing a Blazor demo where you start filling out a form, and then it auto-saves to local storage for you, and then brings that data back when you revisit the page. So I thought that was kind of cool. That link is in the chat room for you folks if you want to see that. And it's a really interesting demo because it shows a little bit of JavaScript interop integration and stuff like that. Getting cloudy in France as well. Thanks for joining us in the chat, Lauren. It's cool that I have viewers from all over the world on this show. It's really fun to have everybody kind of jump in, and a lot of folks in the European area that join the show frequently. So thanks for coming along. So let's take a look at this role-based auth stuff today. And again, this is a great article. It shows you how to do this with Blazor Server. And in the latest updates, I believe we have access to this in Blazor WebAssembly as well. Let me double check my tools here. Just starting out with Blazor, Lauren? Am I getting that right? The zoom on that side of my screen is really hard to see, so I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Let's see here. So just getting started checking out Blazor. Got a little GitHub project going. We could check that out real fast. Just doing some getting started stuff. Experimenting with some... looks like using Visual Studio Code in there. How's Visual Studio Code working out? So I haven't tried that. I've only used Visual Studio. I keep saying I'm going to get into Visual Studio Code and do a couple sessions with it, but I just haven't had time to break down and try it out. Only been using it a couple hours. Okay, cool. Chime in next week and let me know how it's going. See how that Visual Studio Code works out. I heard it's come a long way and it's working pretty well. So let's try creating a new project. And I'm going to choose Blazor app, but let's see. Let's do auth demo Wasm. So what I'm going to call it, and then hit create. And here's where the trick is. Let me make sure I have my zoom tool in here. I do not. Make sure I run zoom it in the background. I need to configure this thing so it auto loads. Never, I can't say never, but every time I get a new PC, which is every like 3 to 5 years, I always struggle with getting everything set up. And I always promise that I'm going to come up with a plan. So when I wipe my system and get everything like from scratch again, like I'm going to have a disaster recovery plan. And I never do that. Looking to check out the Wasm Auth yourself as well, Smab. It should be here in the latest template. Yeah, I do need to automate this. Hey, Curious Drive, welcome back. And please let me know if this music is too loud. I keep trying to tweak this part of the show, and just trying to keep it on a little bit, but not totally cut it off. We'll see how that goes, but if it gets in the way, let me know. I'm trying to keep it nice and low there so it doesn't sound too overbearing on the audio. So yeah, I'm trying this out as well. I haven't experimented with this too much yet, but I've got some things coming up that I'm going to need to use this for. So I'm going to select the WebAssembly app template. And then the real trick here is, first of all, we need to change our authentication, and we also need the hosted model, because if we don't have the hosted model, let's see if we even get the option. We do get the option, which is kind of strange. I don't know how this would work without a server. Kind of want to try this just to, let's do it. Let's see what this does. I don't think this is going to be the way we roll, though. I think we're going to have the ASP.NET Core hosted, or it's going to automatically enable that for us. Let's hit create and see what we get. It's literally the first time I'm trying it without checking that box. So I don't think that really did anything, because there's no authentication bits here. There can't be, can there? No, there's an authentication. I guess it does stub out the client side parts of it, but there's not going to be any way to authenticate. I guess this would be great if we already had a server with authentication, like with MVC or something like that set up, to where we don't want to have to scaffold the entire system out again. So that is helpful, but that's not going to help us today because we don't have that infrastructure set up. So let's do this again. Actually, let's go back to that project. Let's just remove that template. I'll swap over to the folder view and delete it as well. So it's basically a blank solution now. Blank solution, and then we'll just say add new project, and then we'll step through this again. So we want to say this is the auth demo Wasm application, and then I'm going to choose the ASP.NET Core hosted and change the authentication to individual user account. And this will actually create a controller and DB context, all that good stuff for us as well. So you want to do it with a MS personal account login, so it wouldn't be necessary. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need the hosted model. I don't know if that sets you up for all of the other host or other authentication models or not. I haven't read into it enough. So it's something I need to investigate as well. So in this example, we actually have 3 projects up here. So we've got our client, our server, and our shared. So this is going to be, the client's going to have some of the login related bits, but this is going to actually do the heavy lifting of authenticating users for us. So I'm going to dive into here and see what we have. Now, this is one of the parts where I think the framework is a little immature yet, and it's going to need a little bit of time to catch up to where it needs to be in the ecosystem. So it's actually using Razor Pages, which isn't entirely bad. So you can see Razor Pages is here supporting the login for us. The only issue I have with this is that it's using a completely different set of themes and stuff, I believe. At least it was last time I looked at it. So we'll get into that if we need to. But it's actually using an area. And then we have our controller that has the configuration for authentication and stuff in it. And we should actually be able to just run this, and it will hopefully prompt us to scaffold a database for us, which is really cool. You can see it's already got the migrations in here. So our database migrations are in the project. And we have our user model. We have a shared layout that will also be used for pre-rendering, I believe. So any pre-rendering this is doing. And if we go into startup, we have our application DB context and our default, add default identity. This is our identity setup here. And our application DB context is where we're going to store those users. So you can see this whole section here is all about getting set up with authentication. So all of this from, all of this stuff here is auth related. You won't find that in your average setup without checking those options that we did when we created the template. So first thing we need, a database to store those users. It's using configuration to get the connection string. I don't know what I hit there to make it go crazy, but started getting blurry on my screen. We're setting up our default identity provider and so on. And this kind of links everything together here. This adds our API with our 2 settings, our 2 objects that we're injecting. You are stuck with a code first approach here. I don't know, if you already had some authentication system built, then this isn't going to help you too much. Be better off with the first option that I showed, but you'd still have to roll some integration parts yourself. I know you could do auth with Twitter auth as well, and some of the other OpenID type of things. If you want to see a demo of how to do that, check out the Blazing Pizza app. So if you go to AKAMS Blazor Workshop, you'll find the Blazing Pizza application, and you can see how they do authentication in there. with Twitter authentication. So if you already have an auth system in place, you can look here for a reference on how to accomplish the authentication here. And let's see if I can find it. Add API authorization. They have a state provider. And then I think if we go to the server component of this, you can see we've got the, let's see, this one's using SQLite. They may have swapped out. Yeah, they may have changed this. It used to be use authentication. There used to be a Twitter authentication in here. Looks like it may have gotten replaced. It's been a little while since I've ran that. I don't see the Twitter bits in there. I have to dig through the history on that one. So, they may have migrated that to identity. All right, let's take a look here. Hey, Chris, welcome. Ready to learn about some authentication and database integration and all that good stuff today, Chris? I'm gonna scare him away again, watch. Poor Chris, he comes in for like some good chat about HTML and CSS and front-end development, and then I hit him with authentication. He's like, I'm out! I'm out. There's not enough beer in the pandemic to get Chris interested in authentication today. There's just not. I'm just joking, my friend. You're welcome to stay around and learn whatever you'd like. We'll have to do a show sometime and talk about some accessibility and whatnot. Need to order a couple cases just based on the things I said today. Am I right? Let's take a look at what happens if I run this app. I'm going to run it, no debugging or anything, just Control F5. I haven't ran the, what do you call it? The migration strategy or anything like that. I'm just going to run it and see what I get. And so far, so good. Oh, I hit a page. Looks like if we go to the fetch data page, it automatically has detected that I'm not authenticated. So let's take a look at that real quick. If I go back to the client side of the app and look at pages, fetch data, what on this page is deciding that I need to be authenticated? Now, if we look up here, it's just as simple as adding an authorization attribute to that page. So since there's an auth attribute on that page, it's going to send me to log in if I'm not logged in already. We can also do roles and whatnot in there. But I have a feeling that there's more problems going to show themselves here in a minute because, again, we don't have a database yet. So what I need to do is click register, and let's see what happens if I try to register. And I don't know how strict the password requirements are. It must be at least one non-alphanumeric character. Suggest a password. Boom. How about that? Register. Just wasn't even happy with that. Let's put a dash in there. Now I'm registering. And this is where I should hit an error. So there's no database. So it says database operation failed while processing the request. SQL exception, cannot open the database, blah, 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 because it frankly just doesn't exist. And requested login failed. And there's my desktop name. But what's really cool about the latest bits of the .NET Core ecosystem, and when I say ecosystem, I mean all of it, like ASP.NET, MVC, Razor Pages, and Blazor, they all come with this. So check this out. Boom, apply migrations. I have a button right here in the error page, and it tells me several ways that I can do this. So first and foremost, I can click this button and apply the migrations. I can go to Visual Studio and use the package manager, or I can go to the command line on whatever system I'm on. Maybe that's a Mac or something like that, and I can run that command there. So I'm just going to click Apply Migrations instead, and it's applying, and then I believe it's going to prompt me again to reload the application. I know, right? A useful error message that actually does something positive. And this is, it even came back and updated the page, and it says try refreshing the page. So I'm going to hit refresh, hit continue. And since it was a refresh, it reposted the same data that I used before. So I didn't even have to come in and fill out the page again. So it stubs you out a little bit of a workflow even. It says this app currently doesn't have a real email sender registered. Read these docs for how to configure an email sender. Normally this app would be emailed to, click here to confirm your account. You go to in your email and confirm, make sure you're not a bot and all that good stuff. And kind of like you could set up 2-factor authentication, all kinds of stuff in there. Now we should be able to log in, and Google has remembered my credentials. Let's not remember me. Let's log in. Invalid login. I think I put a dash at the end of this random password it generated. All right, it's not doing it. Either the password is wrong or it didn't register me correctly. It says it did. Let's try this again. Let's register another fictitious email. I'll be ed2@fake.com. Let's see here. Let's try to suggest a password. Let's use that one. I still need like a dash at the end. I'm going to copy this one to my clipboard. I think my password was the issue last time. Password saved. Thank you, Google. Let's see if that did the trick. Log in. Invalid login attempt. All right, this is not a good example. Haven't confirmed the account. I can't confirm the account though, because let's see if I have to manually like go in and tweak something. I'm not going to set up SendGrid, so register, confirmation, email, run the app as a new register, check your email account. This is all about setting it up with SendGrid. I'm not going to do all that. Let me check, see if I can dig into the database. Turn off require confirmation. Thank you guys. Require confirmation is turned on apparently. There it is. Require confirmed account. False. Thank you, everybody. That was easy enough. We had a couple chime in there. Let's see here. It's an option you get when you create the service. Yeah, thanks. That was a big help. So I was just going to go in and fudge it. There's actually a Boolean field in there in the database that's flipped when you do your confirmation. But yeah, I didn't know about that either. These are some newer features that came in ASP.NET. Ooh, I'm trying to remember which version it was. It may have shipped in 2.1 when they added all the gRPC, all of the privacy concerns stuff. Yeah, and you can also set password policies and all that stuff in there. There's a lot of options for the identity provider. All excellent points. So now we should be able to rerun the application. Let's try that. Let's go back to the browser, kill this. I'm going to run it again. And now that policy is turned off, which I'm not suggesting you turn that off in a production app by any means. I'm just saying for my example, I'm not going to go through the effort of setting up the email confirmation. So Smab says it was a long time ago. It's been a long time since I've implemented a fresh identity server. The last time I did it, the button that auto registers the database and stuff wasn't even there yet. I'm trying to remember when that was, but I had to go run like SQL scripts manually when I did it. So it's been a little while since I've actually set a new one up. But now when I navigate to fetch data, I am in. But what's really cool about all this is, let's log out. You're logged out. Thanks, Captain Obvious. To go back to hello, back to fetch data. See, it's pushing for me to log in again. This is probably the appropriate response that I want, but I just want to show there's other options here. So we can come in and we can say that we want on fetch data. Maybe we don't want to authorize the whole page. Maybe we want to only authorize the grid, for example, just for sample purposes. We'll say that we want to authorize this. Let's see if I can find authorized view, I think is the component name. And what we can do with this, if I have the right component here, is we can wrap this around things that we want to be authorized. And when we refresh the page, if I did this right, which not sure if I did, just kind of, nope, it still wants me to log in. So that's authorizing maybe the entire view. Let's take a look at the article that I posted earlier. There are ways to only show certain things on a page and authorize view by role. So let's see. Instead of authorizing this entire page, looks like we still need to be logged in, but this is a role-based provider. And what we can do is we can show certain pieces of UI based on role. So let's see if we can do this here. Let's see, there's a couple options in here. Authorized. This content will be displayed if the user is authorized. If you specify a value for this parameter, do not also specify a value for authorization child content. Okay. Let's see. Chris says, I built my first website in React. The bartender shop my buddy is opening in Livonia. Cool stuff, Chris. I took a look at that not that long ago, it seems like. If you want to share it in the chat room, that's up to you. But you're welcome to post a link to what you've been working on. More than happy to share that with the audience. React is a great framework too, by the way. We were doing some work just this Monday with my crew. Let's see. We have a lot of different options in here. Authorized view. Let's see what we get. I think there may be some child templates in here as well. So we have a not authorized template, it looks like. And then we have an authorized. I'm sure there's docs on all this, but I'm being stubborn and just trying to wing it. and figure this stuff out for myself. Which is kind of nice because it shows how intuitive or not intuitive something is when you kind of hack away at something blindly like I'm doing. Let's see what happens if I'm not authorized. I still, again, may need to log in to make this work, but I just want to see what happens without being logged in. Oh, I think I saw something actually for a second, and then it flipped me back to this page. So it still wants me to log in, but displays different content based on the user's authorization status. I would assume that I would see a not authorized, even if I don't have if I haven't logged in at all. Roles policy not authorized. Let's see what this says. Yeah. Content will be displayed if the user is not authorized. I'm not sure why it's still bumping me back to the login page for that. Let's see what happens when we do roles. What roles do we have here? Let's see what's in the article. Let's scan this again. So we have, I didn't set up any roles. I don't know if there's any available by default. Make sure the main wrapper doesn't have authentication. That's true. That may have something in it as well. Login display. That's just the top title bar piece. Let's see what's in the app. Not authorized. There we go. That's an authorized route view. Authorize redirect to login. So this will automatically, but this is at the route level, I believe. So if there's a route that's found, it'll redirect me out. I don't know if this is what I'm looking for or not. Let's axe it for a second and see what happens. Let's not do the route authorization and see what it does. Again, I'm just hacking away. Like, I could go, I'm going to go check the docs in a minute because I think, oh, that didn't work at all. That just gave me a blank page. Yeah, let's go check the docs on that thing and see what options we do have. I may be using it totally wrong. I thought you could restrict content. So see, in this example that they have up on the C# corner, you can set the authorization view up for roles. What I'm curious to see is, I guess if I have a role, that's fine, but I still have to have an account. Thinking if I don't have a login, should I be redirected away from the entire site like that? Let's try something else real quick. Let me make sure there's just nothing lingering on this page. So I took the authentication off. Let's drop the template for a minute. And then I'm going to go check the docs because I don't want to keep fumbling around when I'm just flying blind here. Depends on if I allow guest access. Okay. Oh, see, it jumped out of that even though I don't have... Let's check something else here real quick. Weather forecast controller. My weather forecast controller is also authorized. I'm going to drop the authorized token off of that as well. Because that could trigger it too. Let's see if we can disable completely. No, it still jumped. That's interesting. What is causing... Let's do a fresh build. Nothing rebuilt, so it is the latest and greatest bits. What is causing authentication to trigger? I have an authentication component here. That doesn't seem to be it. So fetch data, let's see. On initialize async, it's going to try to get that. I'm going to drop these as well. Well, we've got this not access not available exception that we're wrapping. I can't remove that. That's interesting. So let me try. Maybe there's something cached. Let me blow this out completely. I don't see anything that should be triggering authentication on that page right now. But it seems to be doing it anyway. Let's do a incognito tab. And navigate over to localhost again. Counter? See, Counter doesn't have any login or authentication in it. Telly learn to code rating with a party of 6. Thank you very much. Welcome the new 6 viewers that just showed up. We're playing with Blazor, WebAssembly, the authentication bits. And we've just installed a brand new Blazor template that has authentication. We added, thank you for the follow. Is that Kevin Griffin? Welcome. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Was that your channel that rated, Kevin? Is that you? Oh, no, it's not. Okay. Oh, it's Chad. Okay. Hey, how's it going? So let's see. Telly learn to code is that tail or tell? Oh, sorry, this small font is going to kill me. Tail learn to code. That's Chad. Okay, cool. Very nice. Just finished up your first week of streaming. It's nice to have friends joining me here. So I know these folks very well. Thanks for coming out and supporting the show. I hope yours went well, Chad. The whole getting on the streaming thing is it's quite a chore. So I mean, getting all the equipment set up and software in place and everything, it takes a while to get going. So congratulations. I'm still baffled as to why this page is kicking me off to authentication. So we just installed Blazor with identity on the back end, and it seems to keep wanting to redirect me, even though I don't have any authentication bits on this page. Let's create a new page. I'm not sure where that little gem is hidden that keeps doing that. Let's create a new page. Let's just call it test, and we'll give it a route of test. So Tillman is asking how the new rig is working, and then Jason says the allow anonymous need to be checked. So we have the counter page. It doesn't have anything special on it, and I don't know where we would check that at, because there's nothing on this page. There's a couple using statements which shouldn't do anything. There's our for each loop and a call out to an API endpoint, which I knocked the authentication off of there as well. So what I think this initially sets up is to show you that you can authenticate your endpoints and everything. So I'm a little baffled as to why when I removed all of that boilerplate, it still is authorizing me. Hey, Eagle, welcome to the show. Just as a quick heads up, Eagle, we've got a unit testing with Blazor article coming out on the Telerik blog soon. So that should be interesting. And today we're talking about authentication with Blazor WebAssembly and identity framework. So I'm going to throw a test page up here real quick. Let's see if we can navigate to that without having to log in, which we should because it's a brand new page. Nothing, I don't even have a menu item for it. Say test, and I can navigate to this just fine, but for some reason fetch data is a no-go. Fetch data still bumps me off. It looks like it's doing it when it does the call to the database. So I was trying to back through this so I could add slowly the steps back to get to where we were. Let's try killing the HTTP call and see what happens. Fetch data, loading. It's authorizing that HTTP call still. So I took it off of the weather forecast controller and it's still authorizing somewhere. That's interesting. So on the server, there's something authenticating that call again. Don't know what though. I have a standard API route controller with a route. It's inheriting from controller base. There's nothing authentication related in here. See, authorization's even grayed out up here because of the using statement. It's not even necessary. So I don't know what it is that is authorizing this route on the controller. So the idea behind why we would authorize that is that we don't want people to be able to hit, let's see if I can find the thing, slash weather forecast. And I can hit it. I can hit it. So what is authorizing that endpoint? When I took, is it because it's, that can't be it. If I uncomment this code, get from JSON async, let's take out, this sounds silly, but I'm going to take out the try catch and see if it has something to do with this. It should never hit that line of code though, because it's not failing. Let's see. Let's try that again. Oh, now it blew up with an error. Let's inspect this, and I'm going to assume that it's still authenticating something, and now I'm not hitting. Can't render. Let's see, unexpected. Access token not available exception. So it's still looking for an access token somewhere. And it's throwing back. So I'm going out to the server. I'm calling get from JSON async on the weather forecast controller. It's hitting this controller and it's saying I'm not authenticated. So it has to be something one level up still. So it has to be, yeah, I'm in agreement there, Mr. Magoo. I think it has to be something in here in our setup. routing, authentication, authorization. I'm thinking that every bit of that controller surface has authentication on it. And I can't think of a good reason why you'd want to take that off unless there was something that you wanted in a public API space that you want to be able to share through a GET request without having somebody logged in. Let's try something else here. Let's see if I can authorize policy roles. So this wasn't initially authorized through this attribute. Add API authorization, was that it? Where would that be? Use API. There's use authentication, authorization. I think that just registers the service though. Maybe it's in here. Add API authorization. Does that add it? Configures the default for identity server ASP.NET Core scenarios. This may be one of those things where I have to allow list this thing. It doesn't say anything in here about locking down all my views though. I guess I'd have to read up on that as well. I hate when it does that. So something is still, it just says adds identity server. It doesn't say, it says configures defaults. I need to figure out what those defaults are. So it looks like all of my API calls are going to be locked down to at least logging in. And this isn't even role-based yet. Let's see here. So let's play around with our test page for a minute. And let's add our authorization, authorize view component in here. So this is one of the things I just wanted to kind of show really quick. So let's see if we get these two messages to show. So on my test page, which has no HTTP calls, because those seem to be locked down. STBroader, I did an incognito window and it still blew that up at me. So I'm thinking there's something server side that's still locking it down that I need to tweak if I wanted to have a HTTP call that was public. So we'll check that again in a minute. We'll circle back. We'll keep playing around. So this authorized view is kind of cool. Let's see if we can get this to work. Let's do a little tab bankruptcy, get rid of that, and then we'll say test. So this is what I was trying to show. We can authorize bits of UI as well. So I can say go away if the person is not authorized, and then let's log back in. And when we return to that page, which didn't send me back to the right page, it says welcome back. So that authorized view template lets me toggle what the user sees based on whether they're authorized or not. And we can also control that through roles as well. So we can say the role is like admin, and that's going to show whether they're authorized or not. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty powerful stuff. You could potentially have some open information on the page, and then on the not authorized version of it, you could say, register to see more, like That's like the lamest version of what you could come up with. But you could say register to see the rest of this or gain access to such and such a feature, and then the authorized visitors get the whole shebang. Yeah, I just said shebang. That made me sound really old. I'm not that old, trust me. Trust my ointments. Let's see. Just read through some of the chat room here. Greeter and message based on if authorized or not, then the message is different. Yes, Janescu, that is what we are looking at. This is really nice also for especially like roles based. I need to check and see. I don't think I have. Let's see if I can get into the database here with the Server Explorer. Is it Server Explorer? Let's see, SQL databases. Nope. Data sources. So let's see if I can find my database here. Is this using, let's see, where is it stashing this database at? I'm going to see if I could peek at it. Bin, object. It's not putting it in. Oh, let's see what the connection string says. That'd be the easiest way to find it, right? Here we go. We'll just use that. Data source, add, database. Sure. I have a connection string. Where's SQL Server? I should be able to do that. Just let me put in the connection string. Where is this thing at? Yeah, I don't have a server list. Advanced? Data source. There we go. I can't get it to come up. I'm just gonna go dig into the database. I can't remember where they hide these things. Should be, it's a local DB. There's my connection string. It's not, there we go, try SQL auth. No. It's not gonna be that either. I'm having a moment. New connection, SQL database file. I don't think that's it either. But we can try. I don't think it's an actual file on local DB. No, it's looking for MDF. I can't remember where the local DB stuff goes. Let's try something else for a minute. I wanted to try what happens if we want to do SQLite. Let's check out SQLite for a minute, see if we can set it up with another provider. I don't know if this was supported before or not. I think it is now. Let's start in the same project. Let's do another one here. New project. That background music's gotta go, guys. That is not a good one. It's too much. There we go. Something a little more reasonable. All right. Let's do a little auth with SQLite. Two messages deleted by... I didn't delete those. I crushed a good song, I guess. Sorry, Chris, it was a little too intense there. The bot can be a little aggressive as well, so no worries. Let's see. So I spun up a brand new app, and this one is using SQL Server. Want to see what happens. So one thing that's great about .NET Core is it runs cross-platform now. So what if we wanted to run this with a SQLite instance instead of SQL Server? So let's see if we can get that working really quick. So what I would need to do in the application to change that is, first of all, in my startup, I need to pull in some different dependencies to use in here. So under dependencies, let's go to manage NuGet packages, and let's browse here. I need entity framework, SQLite provider. So we have SQL Server. It must be installed by default, which I think it is with ASP.NET Core. Let's use SQLite here. Let's pull that in. Accept that. And now I have SQLite available. What I should be able to do, and I'm hoping this works, is I can come in where my database is defined. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I forgot completely. I gotta ditch this project. I completely forgot. Let's do remove. Forgot to enable authentication, which was the whole point to this idea. Let's ditch those projects so I don't get a naming conflict. I'll go back into my project and do an add new project. So if you missed the top of the show, this is kind of a little bit of a repeat here, so you can get caught up. We're playing around with some different authentication bits. And I want to see if I'm on a non-Windows machine or I just want to use SQLite. Is that a possibility? So let's experiment with that for a minute. The first thing is I need to change the authentication bits, and I have to do individual user account, hit create. Take care, Chris, if you're still around. Have a good day, man. Come back anytime. Let's see. So now we've got an application with the authentication bits. Now I can go into dependencies and swap out my SQL provider. So I have the SQL Server provider here. I'm going to go ahead and just drop it so I don't accidentally end up with it. I'd rather have an error. Let's see, SQLite. I need to specify, let's try EF SQLite. There we go. Entity framework, SQL. There's SQL Server again. There's SQLite. So if you joined me on my stream earlier this week, I just want to point this out again because little tooltips are getting in my way. I want to point this out again because I've made the mistake more than once. When you're adding SQLite to your application, do not install you want Entity Framework Core, but you don't want SQLite.core. You want the SQLite without the word core at the end. This is a dependency of this. If you install this one and not this one, you will get errors that don't make any sense. So make sure you install SQLite sans the .core. It will install both. You can see the dependency in here. So it needs other things to work. And now I get an error, use SQL Server, which is great. That's fine, because now I want to use SQLite in its place. Get connection string, default connection, and that is going to come from my app settings default connection. And instead of this long connection string here, I'm going to use data source equals identity DB. You could name that whatever you'd like. And this, I think, is enough to swap out SQLite. Isn't SQLite the default if it's from the command line? That's actually a really good question, Smab. I did not run this from the command line, but we could always go pop out to the command line and check after we see if this works. I think this is what we need. So we'll do the same setup process we did before. Control F5, now that I've swapped out that dependency. Authorizing. Hello world. Oh, this is the wrong project. This is the one I already ran. I need to come up here and swap projects. So this is the brand new one that I am trying SQLite from. Oh, there was a build error. That's not good. SQL Server value generation strategy does not exist in the current context. And it's getting that from the migration. So there is a definite problem with the migration portion of the application here. Now, let me try adding back that SQL Server dependency, even though I'm not sure why it needs it, but there's a dependency missing in here somewhere. Let's see what happens. This is not a typical code file. This is a generated code file. Install SQL Server. It still wants SQL Server, which is interesting because I can see in here, where did it go? There was a SQLite reference in here. This is telling it how it wants to generate ID numbers, and that doesn't seem to be supported by SQLite, so it's throwing an error. So I may have a whole different set of migration strategies for this. So there might be something else I have to run to recreate the migrations. Let's see here. I don't see the migration folder even. Why is that? Where did that error pop up from? Let's try that again. Okay. Where is it finding this file? Data. Oh, it's under data. Data migrations. So there may be something I need to swap out with the migration tool. So something interesting going on there. Let's check the internet and see what happens. Let's do ASP.NET identity with SQLite. Oops. And there's a Google search here we can try. And here's an article that we can check. So we need to change startups, yes. Oh, so Smab, you're saying that you've been actually working with it and specifically on a PWA, and it works out of the box with SQLite. And yeah, you're surprised to see it's different here. SQL Server, and SQLite need different migrations. They don't support the same syntax. SQLite has less functionality. Yes, they do have less functionality for migrations. I've run into that issue as well, especially earlier this week. Applying database migrations necessary. So this is interesting. Somebody is saying these are the steps, the same steps I followed, and they're not hitting that error. Maybe they didn't pull that that dependency out. I think this is going to cause problems, but let's throw the dependency back in, and let's see what happens, just to see what it does. So I don't want to say it's not going to work if I've never tried it. So this is the dependency it's looking for, even though we're not actually using SQL Server. And it didn't install, did it? Did I miss the installer? Oh, there it is, SQL Server. All right, let's try to rebuild. Let's see what it does. Oh, cannot access file. It's being used by another process. That means it's, well, no, it's not. It's not running in the browser anywhere. Let's try killing IIS. Yes, we'll stop it. Let's try run again. There it goes. Looks like IIS Express got hung somewhere. There we go. We didn't run into any issues there yet. Let's register. And then we're going to see that migration issue pop up here. So let's do edit fake2.com password. I'm gonna let Chrome suggest a password for me, and then I just need to put like a dash at the end to satisfy its pesky. Oh, did it on both. Okay, register. Here we go. This is so good. So far, so good. SQLite exception. SQLite error 1. No such table. ASP.NET users. Apply migrations. Try refreshing. That was fast. Try refreshing the page. Continue. Nice. Log in. I'm going to run into the same issue that I haven't validated my account. So let's drop down and go back into startup. And we need to disable the account confirmation dialog or feature, whatever you want to call it. Not really a dialogue, but hey. Rerun the app. So we are on SQLite. We can see that by the app name. Log in. Look at that. It still worked. It still migrated. Even though that it didn't, it was able to use that that ID strategy in the migration, even though it wasn't compatible. So that's interesting, but it worked. So one last time, I want to do this one more time. I know I'm kind of like beating this up, but let's drop out to the command line. I'm curious. I want to see if we get SQLite out of the box if we do the command line version. So let's do a new folder. I'm going to do a CLI demo folder, and then I'm going to go to my command line from there. And then let's do .NET new. And we have Blazor WebAssembly. Smab, do you know the switches for making the application have the options for identity? Let's see. Blazor identity CLI. Let's see if we can figure this out. Identity and authentication. There are lots of docs around this. This is good. Thank you. You're awesome. You found it way faster than I did. Posted, individual. I'm sure it's in the docs, but this is much faster. Thank you. Let's see. .NET new. Blazor Wasm. Is it Blazor? Yeah, Blazor Wasm is the name now. Hosted. And we'll go ahead and make it a PWA2. Sure, why not? go ahead and let that rip. So if I go into my server and I do .NET restore, there's all my packages. Actually, no, I want to be in server. I just want to look at the code, so I'm just going to jump into Visual Studio Code to do it. Oh, it does list of options with double dash help. Cool. So if I look under startup, this would tell me right away if I'm using, let's see, identity UI, blah, blah, blah. SQLite. Look at that. That's interesting, Smab. I'm so happy you pointed that out. So that is something I can tell people now when I'm trying to answer questions and they're asking about identity. I really need to pry and ask them if they're using the command line tools or if they're using Visual Studio, because it makes an assumption that if you're running from the command line, that you're possibly on a Mac or alternative operating system and uses SQLite. You specify in the command line as well. Yeah, that's interesting though. Like, so Visual Studio gives you no options. So if I do file new project, or I'll do add so it doesn't close this. Add, fat fingered something there. Add new project. And I say create. I can change the auth type, but it doesn't ask me what kind of database I want. There's no option for SQL Server or SQLite. So you believe the options will be there when it ships. So I unless you've heard something, I'm trying to figure out where that assumption's coming from, because from what I've seen, this isn't a feature that the core or Razor Pages has. Never seen an option for which SQL server you want to use. So that's interesting. But command line has it. Command line, you can toggle that as an option. It's good to know. Very good to know. So there's quite a few different things that we explored so far. We can use SQL Server. We can use SQLite. We can authenticate portions of a page using the new authentication component, the authorized view component. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's go over to, it was on the client, pages, test. So we've got the authorized view component that gives us our not authorized and authorized views. So that's pretty cool. So we've got options there. We've got templates out of the box. We got templates out of the command line, multiple servers. My personal preference for doing demoware is to use SQLite because it's more portable. If I was in an enterprise, obviously I go for something a little more enterprise focused and use SQL Server, which I've done in the past. Now, one thing that I haven't seen is a manager for all of the roles and whatnot. That is something I'd like to explore more. So let's see, let's go into the database for a second. Let's dig into that SQLite database and take a look at it. They used to have a built-in identity manager inside of what was it? MVC? Was it MVC or was it web forms? I'm thinking back on where you could actually go in and manage all of your users and everything. That was actually like included out of the box, and I don't think that is there anymore. I don't know what the guidance is for managing your users in your applications now. So I'm gonna open SQLite Studio, and we'll go take a look at what those tables look like. And I think the objects are all here for doing our own custom. Let's see, application user, is that the one I'm thinking of? Maybe we need to roll our own. We've got the migrations. Let's see what's in the migration real quick, or in the DB context. Not API authorization, DB context, application user. So I believe we can add our own fields to the identity, the application user. We can customize that, and then we have to scaffold again. We'll add those items to the database. Let's see. Oh, this is not the right SQL database. Let's add a new one. We'll browse to repositories, and we will dig into auth, not the CLI one, the SQLite server identity database, open. And here's all of our roles right here. We don't have any data in roles. Let's see what's in logins. Nothing. We have a user. I should be a user in here. Whoops. So here's what the user data looks like if you're interested. So we have an ID number, which is a GUID. Then we have username, which is my email. It's uppercased, so normalized. Username and email are the same. There may be some customization around that. There used to be. Email confirmed, no. That's the bit you can flip for email confirmation. Password is all hashed. That's good. Security, yada yada. Is the account locked out? Does it have two-factor authentication? Phone number? Access. Access failed count. So that's the number of times we've tried to put a password in and it's failed. All of that stuff is stored in the view here. Device codes, persisted grants. Yeah, so I don't see anything around roles. There's no default roles established here. There's actually no data in these at all. ASP.NET user roles. See, no roles whatsoever. Last time you checked, you had to write your own UI to manage users. Yeah, I wonder what the change was with that. I wonder if it was just too much to upkeep, if it wasn't customizable enough, so they just kind of left you on your own to rewrite it all from scratch. I'll have to reach out to Daniel Roth sometime and ask him where that went and what their plans are for the future. I'm kind of curious. It's been a long time since I've had to implement that stuff, so it was there the last time I created one of these applications, and I remember when they removed it, and when we migrated to a newer version, I had to run some tooling to migrate those old views over. But they used to come out of the, I don't want to say out of the box, you had to install them, I think. So I believe you had to go to the server that the identity service was on, and you had to run some extra software to install the management app. And I think that got deprecated and it's not there anymore. So we'll check on that and see. See if there's anything in here. So let's see, web app fundamentals. See what it says under user identity. ASP.NET 4X. Let's see if there's any articles out here. It's a little bit of information on how to extend the user type. So let's see, as of MVC 6, it looks like there was some samples back in the day, but it slowly looks like it got phased out. There used to be a full suite of stuff that you could run. I don't know if scaffolding identity is exactly what I'm asking for. I think Smabs might be on point here. I think the push to use external providers that have their own UIs, like Active Directory, I think you're right. They want more people to use these open ID providers. I think if you scaffold identity, you get stuff so users can manage their own roles, or not their own roles, but their own details. But that doesn't give you like an administrator screen where you can go in and manage other users. So let's try this real quick. I don't know if I can do this here. This used to break. New scaffolded item. And let's see, would it be on the server? Yes, it would be. API or areas and stuff is in here. If I do a new identity scaffold, add, see if this breaks our application or not. This used to break the Blazor apps, but apparently it works now. So we can override any of these views. So under the scaffolding tool for identity, we get this nice UI here, and we can check any of these things that we want to provide our own UI to the user. They're actually already here. They're already implemented. We can go look at them. This lets us customize it. But it doesn't allow me to manage. Maybe it does. Let's see, there's a manage. This is managing my own user account, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, this is all to manage my own stuff. So if we were to go into our application, let's control F5. We'll go into the application. Let me pull that scaffolding screen up again. So that's going to be really helpful. Oops, not that. If I add a scaffolded item, and then I go into identity in the tree over here, select identity, add, I get this, and this will give me all the routes. So if I went under manage, let's try manage email. I'm logged in /manage /email. There's nothing there. Huh. Oh, account. Oops, my bad. Account. Got to get all the routes correct. And it's still not it. I still may be one level off. It's gonna be, what is the area? The route. So there's areas, identity, pages, shared. Is it identity? Is it that literal? It is. Yeah, so identity slash account route gets me there. Thank you, Silly Porridge. So in here, I have my different views where I can change stuff about my own personal account. This does not gain access to, for me to edit other people's accounts, though. Ideally, you'd want that in a separate software system. You wouldn't necessarily want to bake in something of that type of security into the same project. You don't want to host that on a different server even. But there's nothing out of the box I can think of that you can download and just run to manage users. So yeah, so I could add my phone number, change my email, fix my password, add two-factor auth if that was a feature that my application had, and of course the whole GDP. What is that thing called again? The law that lets me take my data or delete my data. That option is in here as well. GDPR. That's what it is. Yeah, that. You guys knew what I was talking about. So this is the only downside so far, is that notice I have two different themes going on here. I am running Razor Pages and I am running Blazor in the same app, and they both have different HTML and CSS. So this is using, gosh, this even looks like it may be an old version of Bootstrap. Identity, lib, Bootstrap, CSS. If I dig into this a little bit more, well, that was 4.3.1. So this is a current version of Bootstrap, it looks like. So at least it's updated there, but it's a different layout and stuff from the Blazor app. So that gives us two places we have to customize if we're going to have those login screens in our app. Then we'd have to scaffold everything out. And we'd have to modify the shared page that's here. So this is the login partial. At least the scaffolding tool's here, so we could do that if we want. So we could say scaffolded, identity. I'm trying to remember which one it is. It's going to be... I don't see the shared page in here. There should be a common page that we can override. Oh, there it is, layout. Layout's not in there, though. Okay, we can create our own layout, and then we can specify it here, and then all of those things would inherit it. We can also specify a user class, which is good. And there, that's interesting. Let's try something. Database context class. We may be able to actually add SQL to, or add identity to an application that doesn't already have it as well through this identity scaffolding tool. So that might be helpful too. I don't know if that works in Blazor yet, but that would be nice. Because I saw the option there that we were talking about earlier. Yes, Smab, you can control the version of Bootstrap that you use with the scaffolding tool through the command line. Take care, Lauren. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to have to get going here in just a few minutes as well. I've got a meeting coming up at 2 o'clock my time, which is just a very short time away. So you will not be missing much. We're going to close this out here pretty soon. But thanks for everybody for joining me while I dig through all of the identity stuff that's here. You can see we've scaffolded out all of the identity views. And like Smab said, if you go to the command line and use the scaffolding tool, you can put like a dash something or other on it and get the Bootstrap 3 version of all this stuff, which I don't know why you'd want that, but it's a possibility. All this stuff is very heavily reliant on Bootstrap, by the way, which the .NET framework seems to keep heading in that direction. I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews from the rest of web developers. The React community seems to be heavily in favor of dropping Bootstrap and not using it at all. The Angular community seems to be going with the material design aspect of that programming model, and there's a lot of material usage. I don't know what they use for layouts, if they're just going with CSS grid and the Flexbox model, and just using that on top of the material bits. But .NET is still heavily focused on Bootstrap. So we'll see if that sticks around in the next couple years here. For the current time frame, it looks like we're running with Bootstrap still. So we're in a good spot with identity, I think. It's definitely in the right place right now. I think it'll come along. It'll progress in the next year here as we go towards .NET 5. So I like it.
Tell me likey. Tell me want wingy.
I do. I like it a lot. Does it have room for improvement? Sure. Is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. Let's take a look at who is streaming today, and we will go raid them. We've got Clark EO and Lana Lux. So let's take a look and see what Clark is up to. It's been a while since we raided Clark. It might be nice to jump in and say hi to him again. So we're going to queue up for a raid. I want to thank everybody for joining me again on a Friday. Hope you have a good weekend. Stay safe. Come back soon. Check us out on the Code It Live channel. Code It Live is another channel that I appear on. So make sure you check that channel out. Follow them as well. We'll be doing some shows there next week. Some podcasts are coming. We've got React programming and Angular development and all kinds of stuff. We did some Xamarin on there the other day, Mr. Sam Basu. So follow the Code It Live channel, see what's happening there too. Let's say hi to Clark, and I'll see you next week.